Maya stepped into the nearly empty executive floor and saw the trending post glowing on Jonna's laptop screen. The image showed a prototype tablet on her desk, a stack of design notes, and, unmistakably, her worn leather notebook with its torn corner. Fear sat behind her ribs the way a fist presses into a chair, sharp, immediate, and ordering her hands. She reached for the notebook on her own desk, even though she already knew it had been there that morning. She looked up as Jonna pushed his chair back. Someone posted this 10 minutes ago. Jonna hit blew up in under 5. People are tagging the press. Jonna's fingers jittered on the laptop's edge. Maya touched the notebook's spine. It was where she'd left it that afternoon during a meeting about the prototype. She could smell the faint loop of tea on the leather. The first clear problem was in view. Her notebook in the photo made her look like part of the leak. Maya stood and walked the glass corridor toward the conference alcove where the security monitors were mounted. Her steps were small but deliberate. Fear tightened her voice when she told Marcus at the control hub, "Someone used an image with my notebook. It looks like him linked to the leak." Marcus Reed peered at the feed, thumb running along a line of code on his tablet. "Well, review access logs now, Marcus." His tone was blunt. He typed with quick, certain motions. Within minutes, Ethan Vale's profile pinged across the room. The CO's presence arrived like a closed door opening, quiet control, a single figure framed by city lights outside the windows. Ethan did not shout. He did not pace. He took the security chair and placed his hands flat on the console, the way a man settles a surface into order. "Lock the servers," he said to Marcus. "Isolate external feeds. No one leaves the floor." His voice carried authority but not fury. It carried judgment. Ava Chen, the coup, arrived 2 minutes later, shoes clipped and expression taut. She did not wait for introductions. "Find the source." Ava demanded. "Pin a name to that notebook, and we move fast. If it's internal, we handle liability first." Board member Lawrence followed, voice measured and cold. "Cannot have a breach tied to our in-house staff. Pra will eat us whole if we hesitate." Maya felt the boardroom closing in like a narrowed hallway. Her breath shortened. She opened her mouth and managed, I didn't post anything." Her hands shook while she spoke. The meeting became an interrogation by degrees. Ethan watched without interrupting at first. Ava pushed access logs across a tablet toward the tablet. "There are timestamps that place that desk near sensitive files during the leak window." "Ava Maya, your badge was active. Explain." The room's lights caught Lawrence's face in flat white. The city was a dark smear beyond the glass. Marcus reported calmly, "Badge activity was normal. But there's an anomaly in camera timestamps, a blackout during the leak window." Ava's eyes sharpened. "Someone is spinning a story. Find the link to her notebook and close it now." Maya swallowed and tried to touch her own voice down to "Faxi left my notebook there. I left it when I went to the restroom at 2:45. I came back at 2:50. I didn't touch the prototype files." Her sentences were short. She used names to anchor herself. "Jonna can confirm the notebook sat there. Before our midday demo." Jonna nodded, hair falling into his eyes. Outside the boardroom glass, someone in security rerouted a feed. An alert lit up Marcus' console. "Marcus, camera feeds show a blackout for 12 minutes. That's deliberate." Ethan's jaw thinned. He stood, pulled his jacket straight, and walked toward the corridor where the monitors faced the city who had admin access to that set. "Ethan," Ava answered too quickly. "Only senior ops and I have routine admin access. But we can pull the audit." The room filled with technical phrases that meant blame if turned the wrong way. Maya left the boardroom to gather her notebook from her desk. The corridor felt colder than the rooms had been. She kept her steps steady. Someone had already pulled her profile into social feeds, typing out accusations in comments. She kept her hands folded over the leather cover the way a person covers a bruise. Fear had shifted into something else: suspicion. She could not tell if she suspected a high-level sabotage or a careless intern. The suspicion bent her decisions. She caught Ethan in the dim glass corridor, standing with his back to the city, as if looking through it for a solution. Ethan's presence changed the air around the security door. He radiated a distance that hid small movements. He turned, saw Maya, and his expression softened little by degree. Maya, sit with me for a minute." His voice had the same measured baritone he used in meetings, but quieter now. She obeyed because she had nowhere else to go. In the corridor he slid the door closed and leaned against the glass so the skyline framed him like a slow throb of night light. He did not ask for her side in a formal way. "When did you last touch the notebook?" He watched her with steel-gray eyes that didn't blink often. Maya's hands trembled and she set the notebook on her lap. "Noon meeting. I took notes. I left it when I stood up to get tea." I didn't touch anything after her words were measured. She knew Marcus was probably running scans. Ethan's gaze narrowed. He did not say, "I believe you." "We will prove it." "Tell me everything you remember about that meeting." She spoke in short sentences, naming who sat where, what slides they covered. The exact phrase Ava used when she asked about the timeline. Each detail was an action tethered to memory. Ethan's expression changed once when she mentioned Lawrence glancing at a particular slide while tapping his watch. He held that small fact and then added a practical plan. "I'll authorize a hold on any employment action." "Marcus, freeze access logs to preserve evidence." "Ava, no public statement until we verify." Ava bristled. "Ethan, we can't delay." Ethan cut her off with a flat sound. "Not yet. We follow the timeline." "Marcus, lead forensics." Marcus gave a short, affirmative nod. The tension shifted into controlled procedure. Maya felt a strange thrum of relief mixed with caution. She had moved from fear to suspicion and now to a fragile hope. They moved back into the boardroom as a small team once Marcus reported a data point. Someone with admin privileges had disabled selected camera feeds during the leak. Window admin credentials used to blackout cameras were issued from Ava's office server, Marcus. Ava's face did not change. A small muscle at her jaw tightened. Lawrence blinked and opened his mouth. Ethan's hands folded behind his back. "Show me the trace," he said. Marcus tapped the console and pulled the forensic report into the center screen. The room went quiet. Maya felt her breath shorten and then hitch as a new emotion rose, betrayal stitched into the facts. Ethan's voice changed then, not in volume but in shape. "Ava, your admin token was used to access the security nodes at 2:49. How do you explain this?" Ava remained poised. "He didn't touch those systems at that time," she replied. Her words were controlled. "Someone could have stolen a token." Lawrence leaned forward. "Ava, you have influence over ops." "This looks bad," Ava answered with a clipped logic. "There are other explanations." "Pull device fingerprints," Marcus replied. Fingerprints were scrubbed. Remote wipe attempted during the window. Trace leads back through a routed credential from your office. The boardroom became a map of motives and distance. Maya watched Ava's face go almost blank and then flush by degrees. Ava stood and spoke in a voice that tried for calm but hit edge. "You can't accuse me without proof. Aveo can't turn this into a game of personal blame." Ethan did not raise his voice. He placed a single item onto the table, a recorded admin login showing Ava's badge ed and a time stamp, layered under a routable signature that showed a remote handshake. He opened his mouth and let the evidence speak. "This is the trace. Ethan, this shows the route used to blackout cameras. We will hand this to legal and security. No further movement until interviews conclude." Ava's hands tightened at her sides. "You can't do this to me." Ethan's reply was a single line that kept the room taut. "I'm not doing this to you, Ava. I'm doing it for the company." The words were short. The exchange snapped a current through the group. Then the argument accelerated into a direct confrontation. Ava accused Lawrence of setting a private pressure on management last quarter. Lawrence shot back that Ava had been lobbying for outsources and could benefit from a distraction. The back and forth turned sharp, 3 short lines each, voices clipped, accusations flung like small stone salver. "Explain," the badge wrote. "Ethan Lawrence." "Explain the meeting notes." Jonna muttered something about the demo and the prototype snapshots circulating. Marcus stepped between them and threw in a rapid set of technical corrections. The room filled with names and short accusations, each sentence a spark. At one point Ava stepped toward Maya as if proximity could reclaim narrative control. Maya, did you ever speak to outside contractors about the prototype? Ava directly. Maya met Ava's eyes. No, Ava, I did not talk to contractors. I did not share any files. I keep my notebook for notes only. Her voice stayed steady. She repeated specific motions from that afternoon, handing a legal brief to Lawrence, marking a slide with a blue pen, stepping away for tea. Each detail was concrete, tangible. The group paused every time she named a small physical action. Her statements were short, and she said names to keep the record clear. Marcus left to detain Ava for questioning under security protocol while forensic teams pulled device logs. The movement of people through the building carried weight. Doors closed behind them. Marcus Ava to come down to the control hub. Ava complied with a promise to return. The boardroom thinned to a few people, Ethan, Maya, Jonna and Marcus at the console. Ethan turned his face toward Maya and asked, "Did you ever see any sign of tampering in the security room?" Maya shook her head. No, nothing. The room is locked most nights. I only go there during scheduled audits. Her hands folded on the table. She kept the notebook between her palms. The hours slid toward dawn. Marcus reported intermittent results. Someone tried to reroute the admin chain through a remote host. Marcus found leftover packets that indicate a local wipe attempt. The remote host used credentials that should have been inaccessible. Ethan's face hardened. He made a decision. We keep this internal for now. We run interviews. We press legal to hold public statements, and Marcus tightened access to every senior token. Hold the logs. Marcus confirmed with a single short nod. The practical actions meant protection for Maya in the short term. The move felt like shelter. Maya went to the windowsill at the edge of the executive floor while Marcus and Ethan coordinated next steps. The city had become a grid of low lights. She opened her worn notebook and turned pages. There were sketches and shorthand notes, meeting items, little arrows, a pressed receipt for a tea she had bought 3 days ago. The noise of the room became distant. She found her hand trembling and pressed her thumb against the torn corner of the cover. Her fear had moved through suspicion into guarded relief. She was relieved to have Ethan's protection, but wary that the shelter could be temporary. She closed the notebook and slid it under her arm. Marcus returned and said, "Ava will be escorted for questioning. We have enough to detain her for interference pending legal review." Ava's face as she walked past the windows had been carefully neutral. She passed with a purse over her arm and gave Maya a single cold nod. Maya heard the click of Gus' security lock on the outer doors. The building smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. Marcus, while spin the narrative internally, emphasized technical breach. "Do not give reporters a name," Ethan added, "and we protect Maya's employment for now." The phrase landed like a small object placed on the table. Maya felt the room shift one more time late in the night. She stood and spoke, using names to anchor each sentence. "Ethan, Marcus, Jonna, tell me what happens next." "I need to know if any of my devices were accessed," Marcus answered. "Well, run a full device sweep. Jonna will help mirror your laptop and phone. Ethan will approve a temporary her hold while legal investigates." Jonna bent toward her and said, "Maya, I'll sit with you through the sweep. Well, log everything." Jonna's voice was rushed and earnest. He kept using her name as he checked ports and pulled files. The crescendo came when Marcus projected a cross-reference that tied an internal routing signature to an external handle used for a press dump. It included a time stamp and a chain of handshakes traced back through a server in a third-party data warehouse. The trace changed the room's atmosphere. It was one concrete new reveal that rewired who might be trusted. Ethan's face did not change much, but his jaw worked. Marcus, run a deeper trace on that host. Pull any fingerprints and device IDs. I want anything that shows movement inside the admin chain." Marcus began typing fast. The brief silence that followed was a held breath. That pause became the mid-chapter cliffhanger. A line on Marcus' screen turned red as new traffic appeared from an unexpected IP. For a heartbeat, everyone watched the console. Then Marcus, we have a live attempt to access the mirror feed. Someone is trying to scrub the trace Ethan moved in a single, controlled action. He authorized a counter lock and ordered an immediate containment lock outbound traffic. Seal the audit copies. Notify legal and security. The room filled with sharp, efficient actions, phone calls, keystrokes, heavy footsteps in the corridor. Maya's heart beat hard enough she could hear it in her ears. Her chest tightened, and she clenched her hands around the notebook as if gripping a lifeline. The climax in the boardroom came with a short, brutal exchange. Ethan projected the forensic trace showing a route from Ava's office identity to the blackout and the leak. This is the evidence. Marcus did a sequence of logs and timestamps that left little room for reinterpretation. Ava, escorted back into the room by 2 security officers, tried to speak. You can't do this. I don't know who forged those credentials, Ethan answered with a crisp line of measured resolve. We do now. The route includes a handoff that required someone on the operations chain. You had the token and your device fingerprints matched the remote handshake. Ava's voice dropped into a rapid, defensive set of statements. I didn't do it. I couldn't have. Check the fingerprints again. Ethan's reply was 3 short lines. We checked. We cross-referenced. We followed the route. The boardroom conversation became a strike of facts against denial. Ava lashed out verbally, and the room responded with a rapid, 3 to 6 line exchange between Ava, Lawrence, and Ethan. You think he'll sabotage the company. Ava snarled. Lawrence, you supported outsourcing. Lawrence returned fire. Ava, your actions opened that door. You wanted a distraction. This is on you. Ethan cut across them, naming the legal steps that would follow, and ordered security to escort Ava out pending formal inquiry. Security moved with procedural calm. For Maya, the motion felt enormous and small at once. Public accusation, containment, a closing of a chapter of danger. After security led Ava away, the group breathed with the kinetic release of action. Marcus, we've contained the leak for now. PRA will issue a technical breach statement that leaves staff unnamed. Legal will handle next steps. Ethan turned to Maya and said, I'm leaving a hold on your role until the investigation completes. Don't go home tonight. We'll keep sensitive passwords rotated. Maya felt an unexpected tightening in her chest that was not fear. It was something like gratitude leavened with disquiet. She answered, Thank you, Ethan. I appreciated. Her sentence was short. She spoke his name to keep the moment anchored. Dawn found Maya at the windowsill with the city waking slowly below. Marcus was back at his console running final checks. Jonah had left with a stack of mirrored drives. Ethan walked by without fanfare and placed a small object on the sill near her notebook, a thin gold cufflink, the sort Ethan wore. He did not explain. Keep this until you feel safe to leave it behind, Ethan. His voice was low, and he watched her face for a fraction of a second. Maya picked up the cufflink with both hands. It was cold and precise against her palm. She opened the notebook and wrote a short, concrete note on the first page. Inventory, notebook present, device sweep complete, witness, Jonah. Hold approved by Ethan Vale. Her handwriting moved into the thin margin of the page with careful strokes. She slid the cufflink into the torn corner as if tucking away a guarantee. Outside, a taxi line started to form. The air smelled of wet concrete and coffee trucks pulling up. The chapter closed on a small situational beat. The security team led Ava out through the lobby doors while Marcus sealed the forensic copies and Ethan instructed legal to draft containment language. Maya stood up, placed the notebook under her arm, and slid the gold cufflink into her palm as if weighing it. She walked out of the executive floor with Jonah at her side and Marcus watching from the console. The immediate threat had been contained. The company would process the fallout. The notebook lay heavy and factual against her side, and the cufflink caught the first line of sunrise on its edge. A security guard slammed a printed screenshot onto the lobby desk and said, "Is this yours, Maya?" Maya felt suspicion prick the inside of her throat the way cold air pricks skin. She looked at the image, her worn leather notebook, the torn lower right corner, a prototype tablet beside it. Within 3 breaths, she understood the stake. Someone had matched her notebook to the leaked prototype photo, and the company now had a public problem pinned to her name. She did not wait to explain. She mouthed, "No," and reached for the paper with one hand while the guard kept his other hand on it. His name badge read Ramos. His jaw was tight. The lobby lights cut across his face in hard strips, and outside the glass the city was a line of distant headlights. Maya's fingers hovered over the paper. Her chest tightened. Suspicion moved into fear when Ramos, "Security needs to take you upstairs." Maya remembered the trending post that had glowed on Jonah's laptop the night before. The image Jonah had left open when he stepped away. She had seen that exact corner torn from the notebook, the handwriting she recognized along the margin. That memory Jonah's screen was concrete, and she held it like evidence in her pocket as Ramos led her through the elevator. She did not invent the connection. She had watched it happen. The elevator smelled of disinfectant. Maya kept her hands clasped around her bag's strap. Ramos' voice was low and steady. "I have to ask you about access logs and who was at that desk." After hours, Maya's mouth went dry. She answered in short sentences. "He left at 7. I didn't touch the prototype. I keep my notes private." They moved to a small security room that felt too bright. The table had a stack of printed posts, a tablet playing the viral clip, and a plate of stale cafeteria cookies. Security Chief Ramos sat across from her with a tablet showing timestamps. The image of her notebook was on full screen. Ramos did not raise his voice, but the words came like metal on metal. "The firm needs to know how this was photographed. We need a full account." Maya's hands were steady enough to lay the notebook between them. She set the notebook down and opened it to the page she had marked with a corner fold. The torn edge faced them like an accusation. A camera angle in the lobby caught her looking at the page. She spoke and kept her voice even. "I keep design thoughts here and personal notes. I did not share it. Last night Jonah left his laptop open. I saw the post there on his screen. Jonah's name landed like a stone in the quiet room." Ramos tapped the tablet. "Jonah says the image on his laptop is not from his account. Prar is calling it an internal leak. Ho will be here in 20 minutes. Maya's breath shortened. The word leak arranged itself into a chain of consequences in her head: suspension, public shame, loss of a place she could not afford to lose. Suspicion hardened into fear, then a quick, stubborn refusal to be shuffled aside. She had come to Veil Technologies for stability, for a steady paycheck and clear expectations. Her role had been small and reliable: schedules, calendars, coffee preferences. In Chapter 1 she had seen Jonah's laptop and left the floor with the image lodged in her memory. She had not imagined it would return like a boomerang aimed straight at her. That concrete scene Jonah's screen had become the center of this accusation. A half hour later, Ava Chen from legal arrived with a PRA representative and an HR rep. Ava took control of the room with a smooth, practiced calm. Ava's tablet displayed the same post and a headline. She did not ask for Maya's feeling. She asked for facts. "Maya, we're placing you on immediate suspension pending investigation. Avaya will not access company systems until cleared." Maya's pulse spiked. The word suspension landed like a physical hand on her shoulders. Maya swallowed and pointed to the notebook on the tablet. "If you check access logs, you'll see I left at 7. I don't have the credentials that uploaded that image. Please check the logs for that desk." Ava's eyebrows tightened. Jonah stood behind Ava with his arms folded. Jonah's face was tight. Anger showed in the set of his mouth. He kept glancing at Maya's notebook as if it had a magnet attached to blame. Jonah cut in, voice clip: "This post comes from this floor. The shot shows the notebook and the prototype on Maya's desk. It matches the tier exactly." Maya met his eyes. "Jonah, you left your laptop open with that window visible. I told you last night. You walked away. Jonah's jaw clicked. That doesn't change the upload time. The exchange added heat to the small room. A pra woman spoke into her phone, calling legal counsel, and Ava closed the notebook carefully before the camera. Jonah, do you have proof it wasn't an outside account? Ava. Jonah pushed a printout across. The tabla forensic window shows internal access. The metadata ties to someone on this subnet. Maya's head snapped up. Internal access meant a staff account. Then check access logs for the physical desk. Check card swipes. She said check who logged in after 7. Her voice tightened. Suspicion had moved into anger. They escorted Maya down the glass corridor toward the security office for the logs. Ethan arrived then, not with a storm but with a precise, controlled stride that sliced the hum of conversation. Maya watched him come in the way someone watches an announced procedure begin. Measured? Inevitable. He wore a charcoal suit with gold cufflinks that caught the hallway strip light. He folded his hands when he assessed the scene. Ethan looked directly at Maya for the first time. He did not ask about policy. He demanded an account. Maya, give me the timeline. His voice was firm. It expected answers. Maya felt the pressure of his attention. She him short sentences, exact time as he left at 7. Jonah's laptop was open. I saw the post on his screen at about 8:13 when I last walked past his desk to clear a charger cable. I didn't touch the prototype. Ethan's lips pressed together. He listened with a calculating tilt of his head. Ethan stepped into the security control room where Ramos and his techs replayed camera feeds. Maya watched from the doorway. Her throat tightened again, but she fixed her face. Ethan Ramos for a replay of camera angles near her desk between 7 and midnight. Ramos keyed through footage and found a small gap. 3 minutes at 9:01 where the log showed no frames. Ethan's brow moved a fraction. 9:01, he said. The word was a marker. For Maya, doubt swung into a sharp curiosity. They pooled around monitors. The footage surrounding the gap showed cleaning staff passing by and the lights of the hall. Maya leaned closer. Her fingers dug into her bag strap. There should be an unbroken feed. We keep that floor secure after hours, she said. Ramos tapped a keyboard. There was a timestamp gap. There is also an external login pattern on the forensic trace, but it's using internal credentials. Ava's mouth thinned. Someone used a staff account from outside. That suggests deliberate sabotage. The possibility shifted suspicion away from simple negligence into deliberate framing. Jonah's face hardened. He pointed at a printout with a smeared circle around an iptris of the trace points to an unregistered device plugged into the East data port. Someone had after-hours access. Ethan's gaze snapped to Jonah. Who works near the East port? He asked. Jonah named 2 teams. Their names in quick, clipped bursts. Each name landed on Maya like a pebble. She catalogued them without inward commentary. Ava stood and moved toward the bank of phones. Had a pre-written statement ready. She did not release it. Instead, she asked the one question everyone had avoided: who benefits from this leak? Jonah's face lost blood. He shifted. Ethan's shoulders tightened. The question was practical and dangerous. If the leak protected one person's timeline or sabotaged a competitor's window, motives multiplied. Maya could feel the room compress around her. The fear that had followed suspicion softened into a focused determination. She pushed her chair back and asked, check Jonah's after-hours access. I saw the post on his laptop. He had that window open. Did he use his account to log any external uploads? Jonah shot back quick and sharp. You're deflecting, Maya. The photo was on your desk. The exchange ran like a short, electric storm. Ethan cut in then, 3 rapid lines, each clipped and precise. Jonah, where were you between 9 and 9:30? Jonah, did you remotely log into any external accounts? Jonah, who else had physical access to that corridor? Jonah blinked, caught. He stammered a time, named a contractor, and then said, I left at 9. I checked the build logs in the elevator. Ethan's eyes sharpened. The room tightened into accusation. The security tech called up a cross-reference of card swipes. One card swipe registered at 9:01, an external maintenance badge issued last week. The badge belonged to a contracted installer named Marco Alvarez. Ramos scrolled through the database and found Marco's sign-in sheet. Marco's badge had been issued by an internal manager who signed for access. Maya's pulse sped again. Now the chain pointed to someone else. The mini cliffhanger arrived, the badge tied back to an internal account. Ava and profound out across the room. Ava's voice was quiet, but immediate. You will pause suspension while we confirm facts. But Maya, you must remain available for questions. Maya's shoulders dropped a fraction. Relief surfaced and then curdled into wariness. That was one emotional shift, fear to relief to guarded vigilance. She had been offered a tentative reprieve, but with conditions that left her on uneven ground. Ethan took Maya aside in a hallway lined with glass. The city glittered beyond the windows. He folded his hands and did not look away. Tell me exactly what you remember from Jonah's screen, he said. Maya recounted the image she had seen, the exact corner tier, the inked initials in the margin she recognized. She described the smell of coffee she associated with Jonah's late-night work and the way his laptop had been angled. She kept sentences short, concrete. Ethan listened and nodded without revealing his thoughts. You did the right thing to tell me about the screen. We will confirm the card swipe. But understand this is visible now. People will draw conclusions. I can protect you from immediate suspension, but the company will watch you. Do you want to stay or step away while we investigate? Maya felt the weight of that choice as if it were physical. To stay meant daily proximity to rumor and scrutiny. To leave meant admitting liability to public opinion. She answered, I want to stay. I can't afford to leave. Ethan's jaw tightened. He gave her a look that contained both warning and a strange, private consideration she could not name. They returned to the security room where Ramos announced a forensic trace that pointed to Jonah's credentials being used, but from a new external MAC address. Ava took out a legal pad and marked a new line on her spreadsheet, prepared a quieter message for internal stakeholders. Jonah's posture changed from accusatory to defensive. I didn't do this, he said. His voice hit a higher register. He struck a defensive line of dialogue. Check the cloud logs. Check any remote access. Ethan watched Jonah and said, Jonah, your credentials were used. Explain. Jonah stammered a moment, then accused Marco's maintenance team and said he had not left his laptop open in a way that could be screenshotted. Ethan's reply was a short exchange of pointed lines, 3 rapid cuts. Who signed for Marco's badge? Ethan. Who authorized after-hours access near the East Port? Jonah shifted. Ava chimed in with one sentence. Her will audit approvals. The back and forth satisfied the criteria for direct confrontation and rapid exchange. Words hit quickly and left questions. In the glass boardroom, Ethan called Jonah and Ava to review the full logs. Maya followed because she could not stay away. She watched Ethan unfold a chain of access across the screen, credentials, MAC addresses, card swipes. Ethan's finger stopped at a time stamp and he said a single line, this ties to Jonah's account. But the physical badge was signed out by an executive assistant. Maya's stomach dropped. The name on the sign-out was not hers. It was a different assistant's name from another floor, someone Maya only knew by sight. The reveal moved the story sideways, a new suspect whose presence Maya had not expected. The tone in the boardroom shifted. Ava's shoulders tightened as she connected names and approvals. Jonah's defensiveness started to crack into anger. Ethan's voice remained the only cool center. He pointed questions and did not let conversation wander. The room felt like a tight lens focusing in on motive and opportunity. Maya watched each person as if cataloging their reactions for later reference. Then Ethan pulled Jonah's workstation forensic image and pinged the external MAC. Cross-reference with badge sign-ins. If someone used Jonah's credentials remotely, show me that remote host. He spoke with business-like authority. Maya's chest moved with a single, audible breath. The team worked fast. Cameras burned through files. Someone in security called up a backup feed and found a faint reflection in the boardroom glass, a silhouette near the East Port at 9:00. The image was low resolution, but it suggested a person crouched by the port with a small device. Jonah's voice rose. That could be anyone. That doesn't mean he stopped because Ethan interrupted with 3 short lines of demand: who signed for access, who benefited from this going public, who had motive. Jonah flinched and then said, there are execs who would freeze the prototype to delay the launch. Marketing would benefit. Supply wants more time. Ethan's jaw tightened. Each named possibility shifted the direction of suspicion away from Maya and toward a structural motive, someone within the company manipulating timelines. Ava made a decision out loud: we'll pause disciplinary action until the forensic team completes the audit. Jonah, we will restrict your account and issue a notice to contractors, security, quarantine that Eastport. The legal language landed like procedure. For Maya, the relief was cautious. She had been offered a stay of action, not a pardon. Her suspicion, which had been the root feeling that opened the chapter, had moved through fear and then into guarded hope and finally into a steady resolve to prove herself. By dawn, the boardroom confrontation had yielded a rapid confession. The forensic logs, cross-referenced with a maintenance checklist, pointed to a misfiled approval. Jonah's credential had been copied onto a contractor's device manually, and Jonah, caught off guard, admitted to lending his key fob to a junior engineer who had asked to fetch an after-hours sample. The junior engineer had been careless. Jonah's face crumpled when he named names. The confession did not erase the viral post, but it shifted the locus of culpability outward. The shift was a surprise in the chapter, an unexpected reveal that changed how everyone understood the leak. Ethan called the boardroom to order and made a short statement to will correct communications and hold the appropriate people accountable. I will withdraw the suspension on Mies. Lynn, pending the final report, nodded and wrote the note. Maya exhaled so hard she felt lightheaded. Relief swept her in solid, measurable waves, but it arrived with a price. The company's posture meant she would be visible now, and someone like Ethan had placed a guarded offer across that visibility. Later, in Ethan's office, which was dim and lined with shelves of awards and blank models, he closed the door. He did not sit. He placed a small, deliberate object on Maya's desk where her notebook used to sit, a single black notebook with a slim gold pen. He did not speak immediately. Maya picked the notebook up with 2 fingers. Ethan's face was composed. Paused the suspension. He said, you can stay, but the company will watch the rollout. I need your help keeping sightlines clear. Will you help me with access audits when needed? Maya considered the offer. Saying yes would bind her to the company and its hazards. Saying no would make her look like she avoided responsibility. She touched the leather of the notebookies, she said. Her voice was steady. Ethan's expression shifted in a way she could not read. He nodded and left the room as precisely as he had entered. He left behind a quiet promise and offer, practical and conditional. She returned to her desk at first light. The office smelled faintly of recycled coffee and cleaning solvent. On the windowsill where her notebook had sat, she found a small, deliberate note, a single line, printed on thick card, with Ethan's handwriting beneath it. Stay if you choose to. We'll watch together. The card was simple. Her fingers trembled, not with some dramatic revelation, but because the choice was real and precise. Stay and accept scrutiny, or step away and protect a calmer private life. Maya set the black notebook beside the torn one and opened to an empty page. She wrote one line: stay audit access, protect the prototype. She closed the notebook and slid it into her bag. Outside, the city washed light across glass towers. Inside, things were quieter. The immediate crisis had a direction now. The leak's immediate accusation had resolved into procedure, personnel changes, and a guarded offer from a man used to controlling outcomes. Someone knocked on the glass and Jonah's voice asked, Maya, can we talk later? She looked up and nodded once. Jonah's apology would have to wait. The company needed fixes, and she needed to be part of them. Her suspicion had led to an interrogation. Fear had brought sharp, defensive answers, and clarity had arrived through a forensic reveal that rerouted blame. The emotional shifts had come in actions and the speech of others, not in long interior lines. As the morning filled the floor, sent an internal memo retracting the internal accusation. Her began a formal audit. Ava stayed long enough to ensure the language was precise. Ramos reset cameras and scheduled spot checks. Ethan's offer hung between them like a tool. Maya tucked the black notebook into her bag. She had been spared suspension, but she had not been absolved from consequences. Stay, if you choose to, had been the precise clause. She understood that staying meant visible labor, constant checks, and the requirement to show competence under scrutiny. The final shift came when Maya found a small support, a single printed page left on her desk with a short sentence from Ethan: no grand speech. Only an instruction to meet security at 10 for review. The page closed the chapter of the night. The company's immediate threat had been diffused, Jonna's culpability realigned, and Maya had a decision she made with her hands and voice rather than a speech. She picked up her bag. When she left the building, the sun struck the tower glass and cut a strip of light across the lobby tile. Maya walked out under that line and kept her step even. The concrete results of the night were in place: an audit ordered, personnel shifts per correction, and a guarded, conditional offer to remain. She had survived the accusation. The notebook in her bag felt reassuringly solid. The last sound before the automatic doors closed was Ethan's voice through the glass column. Measured, be ready at 10. Maya nodded, and the automatic doors closed. Maya slit the envelope with the thumbnail she'd used to open invoices and froze when the photograph slid into view. Suspicion tightened her chest the way a hand might press against a rib. The image was a close-up of her worn leather notebook, the torn lower right corner showing exactly as it did now on her desk. She turned the photo in her fingers and found the angle wrong for any casual picture. The notebook lay beside the prototype tablet, the same stack she had pushed aside the night the leak surfaced. Jonna's screenshot from the lobby 2 nights ago crawled back into her head, the bright screen, the blurred face in the reflection, the way someone had typed the wrong caption. In those 5 breaths she understood the stakes. This was not a mistake. Someone wanted her to be the story. Maya stuffed the photograph into her cardigan and left it visible on the desk while she went to make tea. She moved with the practiced silence of someone used to not being noticed. The kettle clicked and hummed. Her hands did not stop shaking until she set the mug down and thumbed the corner of the notebook, feeling the tiny recorder she would only later discover. For now, she focused on facts she could control, keep the image intact, tell Marla, call Jonah. Doubt slipped into a smaller, hotter shape. She had to act without panicking. Jonah found her before she found him. Maya, what's that? He asked, coming around the desk that had once held his coffee stains and now carried a printed accusation. Jonah's voice held a new edge. He said her name in a way that asked whether she would confirm or deny. Jonah, did you leave this here? Maya, and Jonah's eyes flicked to the photograph and back to her. He folded his arms and checked his Fanino. He said he didn't touch your desk after midnight. I swear. Maya felt suspicion shift to guarded anger. She set the photograph on the counter and leaned forward. Jonah, the screenshot from your laptop. She started. No. He cut in. He logged out. I never meant for that to get out. He glanced at her name on the printed paper like it was a label someone had slapped on him. Jonah, listen to me. May, if anyone has access to your files, tell me now. Jonah pressed his thumb against his forehead and looked small between the glass walls. Maya, Marla's already running a sweep. She me to keep anyone I know away from my laptop. I thought if I told you, it would make it worse. He swallowed him, not trying to sabotage you. They walked to the break room together, because the corridor felt too exposed. The fluorescent lights hummed above the vending machines. A security badge flashed at the door as Marla stepped in with Cole behind her, an iPad in hand. Show me, Marla without preamble. She stood with her shoulders even, procedural and watchful. Jonah, Leave it all on the table. Well, handle the chain of custody. Maya handed over the envelope. Marla's fingers were quick, measuring Maya. Stay here. Do not touch anything else on the floor until we log it, Marla. Her voice was firm. Carl, pull logs from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Check the hallway camera outside her desk. The words moved panels of the problem into place. The private coil of fear that had been twisting in Maya's chest widened into a public process. In the security room, monitors blinked with timecodes. Carl ran his hands over the keyboard like he was trying to catch a live thing. There's a gap, he said, and pointed to a blacked-out slice on the timeline. A corrupted clip. 60 seconds gone. Around 2:15, and Marla wrote the timestamp down slowly. Maya stood behind them and watched the grainy feeds loop. She found herself counting door sensors, latch timings, the way the corridor lights dimmed when motion passed. The missing footage turned an accusation into an act. She realized someone had used a small window of time, a brief tamper, to stage evidence. Back on the floor, Ethan called Maya into the boardroom. He walked in last, hands folded behind his back, watch bright against his charcoal sleeve. Maya, sit, Ethan. His voice had the precise cadence of someone reading from a script he had written to contain emotion. Daniel from Har will stay. We need a factual account. Maya felt a new emotion nudge under suspicion, exposure. She sat, tucking the notebook under the table as if hiding it could keep it safe. Ethan's questions were compact. Where were you at 2 a.m.? He asked who had physical access to the prototype. Daniel recorded each answer. Then, I left at 10. I printed a checklist at 9:30 and locked my desk. I never took the prototype home. Maya. Her sentences were short and spare. Maya, a photograph places your notebook next to the device. Why was it there? Ethan proceeded. Put my notebook down while I made a call in the lounge. She answered, remember, because the corner tore when I bumped the armrest. Ethan watched her like he was measuring weight. Jonah, your notebook was visible in a screenshot on his laptop. He said, Jonah. Daniel prompted. Jonah's denial had a thinness that made Maya notice the way his shoe tapped the carpet. He didn't mean for my screen to be seen. Jonah, he was working late. I must have left it open. The room slid into a short argument. Jonah, you left your laptop unlocked at night. Daniel, Jonah, that's not a defense. Marla cut in from the doorway. Jonah, tell us who had your credentials, Ethan added. Jonah burst into a series of quick movements, palms up, voice higher. He told you, I didn't share my login. Someone called me. Someone they'd fire me if I didn't hand off that screenshot. I didn't know who it was. The exchange turned the interrogation into a tight volley of questions and deflections. 3 to 5 lines traded rapid fire. The boardroom hummed with a tension that sharpened around Jonah's name. Carl's IT Forensics produced a report in the early afternoon, found a remote access trace to Jonah's laptop. Carl in the lab. Leaning over a printout, there's a time-stamped transfer at 2:13, that matches the metadata on the leaked image. Ethan read the numbers like a verdict. Jonah, this file went out from your machine, Marla. Jonah's eyes went glassy. He opened his mouth, closed it, then faced the floor. He was forced. He said they'd send images if I didn't comply. They called me from an unknown number. Marla's expression did not soften. Name the number, Jonah. Give us anything. Jonah shook his head and ran a hand over his face. He can't. They threatened me. Maya left the lab with the report clutched in her hand. The report moved suspicion toward a human actor and away from an accidental slip. She needed to check her notebook. She would not wait for other hands to move it. At home that night, she unlocked the door and went straight to the windowsill where she kept the notebook stacked with receipts. She thumbed past meeting notes to doze, the sketch of a product layout. Her fingers brushed the torn corner. A small cylinder of plastic slid from the page and clattered onto the floor. Maya crouched and picked it up. The cylinder fit between her thumb and forefinger. A tiny LED blinked when she pressed it. She felt a shift, doubt to certainty. The device held the exact cut audio clips she remembered hearing in the boardroom, edited to sound like her routine. The recorder's tiny mouth had captured footsteps, The sound of a kettle, her own voice asking about the prototype. Someone had planted the recorder and then made a photograph to match. She turned the device over and traced its seam. Whoever had done this knew her schedule. She called Marla immediately. Marla, I found a recorder in my notebook. Maya recorder. Marla's voice was flat. Bring it in. Do not touch it again. Move straight to security. Maya wrapped the device in cloth and walked back into the night with the recorder pressing into her palm. She felt an urgency sharpen. The mic had turned private moments into evidence and used them to build a case against her. Someone had watched her and rehearsed their deception. Marla met her at the lobby with Carl and Ethan waiting in the bright security corridor. Found it. Ethan. He looked at her then, not quite private, not quite public, measuring how much to reveal in front of the security teamies. Mayat's lodged in the torn corner. She handed the recorder to Carl, who sealed it in an evidence bag with gloved hands. Forensically extract every byte. Carl, if this was planted, well, find the insertion timestamp. Ethan's jaw tightened. Jonah, why did you run when we asked questions? Ethan. Jonah stood against the staircase glass and did not meet Ethan's eyes. He panicked. Jonah, I thought running would make them stop. Jonah bolted through the lobby before the questions split into another set. He pushed through the revolving doors and across the atrium like someone trying to outrun a shadow. Marla called for security, and within seconds the custom pass system announced officers to the glass stairwell. Maya watched Jonah's shoulders disappear up the spiral. The chase was abrupt. Marla and 2 guards took the stair, Ethan took the glass elevator, and Carl tracked with a handheld radio. Maya followed on the main floor because she could not stand still. The building's lights reflected on the polished banister, and the stairwell turned into a narrow vertical world. They caught Jonah halfway up the stair. He had nowhere to go. Ethan intercepted him at a landing, his bulk blocking the exit. Jonah's breath rattled through his collar. Jonah, stop. Ethan. Jonah? Tell us who called you. Jonah pressed his palms to the glass and looked like someone who had been folded. They'd post pictures. If I didn't send the screenshot. Jonah, they'd make it look like I stole company files. I did what they told me to do. I'm sorry. The confession was abrupt, raw and small. Ethan listened without moving his hands from behind his back. Marla cuffed Jonah's wrists gently. Who called? She demanded again. Jonah's head dropped. He don't know a name. He said they used spoofed numbers. They get us the image or we upload. They threatened my family. Marla's face tightened in a way that made Maya notice the control leaving her posture. Name a number or a method and well trace it. Well, protect your family, Marla. Jonah's eyes filled and he started to speak, trailing answers that opened and closed. They'd post if I didn't. They gave me 3 hours. Ethan stepped closer and said, Jonah, stay put. You will be questioned. You will cooperate now. Jonah nodded and the police took him through the glass doors. The stairwell emptied of running feet and the echo of shoes. Maya leaned on the banister and felt exhaustion like heavy linen. She had expected vindication to be simple. Instead, vindication came tangled with a young man's fear and a network of manipulation. In the security debrief, Carl fed the recorder's contents into an analysis machine. Someone spliced ambient sounds to match her routine. Carl, they created a false timeline. The insertion timestamp and the metadata show the device was put in the notebook. After hours, Marla wrote notes in a tidy list. Ethan read without comment, so they staged it. Maya. Her voice was quieter now, sharpened into resolute lines. They wanted to point at me. Ethan looked at her then. And for the first time that night the public distance softened into private concern. He did not step across the table, but his eyes held a steady, watchful wait. Maya, he said, we will run a full audit. No one will touch your access or your projects. Marla, lock her accounts to admin only until the audit completes. Call, go through Jonah's transfers with legal. I want a full timeline. No leaks from this floor. Marla nodded and typed commands on a tablet. Done, she said. The sound of the keyboard closing was an action that translated to protection. Maya felt something shift again from fear to a cautious relief. She did not feel safe. She felt watched and then shielded. Her relief came with a stinging aftertaste because the threat remained. She watched Ethan's fingers tap the edge of his watch and heard him continue in a measured tone. Maya, I want you to leave your notebook with Marla for the night. Take a copy of your notes. We'll log everything in the morning. Maya hesitated, then handed the notebook over. Marla slipped it into a sealed evidence bag and placed it in the secure locker. Outside the locker room, Jonah was escorted past the security doors with 2 officers. He glanced at Maya as he passed. His eyes were hollow. Maya, he said, the name a small, apologetic bulletin. Sorry, she did not answer. She had no fix for the situation except to let the legal and security teams do their work. Ethan stood a few paces away and watched Jonah go. Later that night, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a legal pad and copied the day's events into neat bullet lines. She wrote timestamps, who asked what Marla had done, and what Cole had promised. She called her mother and left a short message. They think I leaked files. I'm fine. I'll call in the morning. She did not say how small she felt or how the recorder had felt like a violation. She only recorded the facts and the choices she would make. Go in tomorrow, cooperate, keep her voice steady. Before she slept, a message arrived on her phone from an unknown number. A single photograph of her desk with the envelope removed and the notebook sealed in evidence. The caption read, "Nice try." Her first impulse was to call Marla, but her second impulse was to breathe and to act. She hit reply, typed nothing, and then closed the app. Jonah's panic had triggered a chain that now reached deeper. The object's presence in the evidence locker did not erase the fact that someone still had eyes on them. In the final minutes before she allowed herself to lie down, Ethan called her. Maya, he said he told Marla to protect your access. I'll authorize the audit personally. Stay away from the floor tonight. Do you need a ride? Maya paused. His offer was simple and pragmatic, not theatrical. No, she answered, I'll be fine here. Thank you, Ethan. He did not push. He ended the call by saying, I'll check in at 9. The line clicked. The chapter closed not in certainty but with a concrete action. Marla clicking a terminal choice to lock Maya's accounts, Carl sealing the evidence bag, and Ethan ordering a full audit while Jonah was taken for questioning. Maya sat with a pad of paper and a list of witnesses to call. The final sound was the locker door shutting and the security code engaging. A single mechanical click that marked both containment and the knowledge that the threat had not been fully named. They pushed a printed screenshot into Maya's hands the moment she stepped through the glass door. Is this yours, Maya? Jonah, without looking up from the table. Suspicion sat in the brittle angle of his voice, and she felt it the way you feel a finger press against a bruise. Maya's first action was to lift her palm and show the notebook's torn corner without thinking. The torn lower right triangle matched the image exactly. She held the physical object toward them, the worn leather cover, the coffee stain near the spine, the inked page edges. She could not let suspicion become accusation, and so she spoke, short and steady. It is mine. I did not post that image. The room smelled of recycled air and midnight coffee. People shifted in their seats. Ethan Vale sat at the head of the table, palms folded behind his back, expression practiced. He timeline. Who had access to this floor after business hours? His voice was controlled. His eyes were cold gray measurements. Maya answered with facts when she left. Who had sent her the final proofs? When the prototype was locked, but with every concrete detail she offered. The printed screenshots sat between them like evidence that needed to be explained. Within 5 sentences, the central problem was clear. A viral image placed Maya's worn leather notebook next to a prototype tablet, implying she leaked confidential design notes. That accusation could cost her job, reputation, and the fragile trust shed built. The boardroom door clicked shut. Malik, head of security, tapped a tablet and said, "We will lock the floor until we verify." The words landed like a steel latch. Maya's rhythm shifted from measured explanation to defense. She set the notebook on the glass table and opened it to the page with margins of numbered sketches. "Look at these notes," she said, turning the book so the composition numbers were visible. "Those are my shorthand. Those lines are mine. I keep my desk locked at night." Her hands trembled in a way she noticed and then suppressed. The tremor became evidence of fear for some. For her, it was a pulse of urgency. Ethan scanned the image on the laptop again. He tapped the screen. "Jonah, where did this screenshot surface?" Jonah's jaw tightened. "Social mid-level tech blog. Someone sent a tip." It trended fast. Lena Park, general counsel, slid a legal pad forward and asked, "Maya, did you share these files with anyone outside the company?" She kept her voice flat, like an examiner reading off a list. "Maya, Lena, you can check my outbound logs. I left at 8:45. I was not in the building after that." She pushed the timeline out as a shield. Her commute, the night bus, the keycard swipe, times she could recite. That recitation was action. She moved through time with clear numbers, not feelings. An external event broke the verbal volley. Malik stood and walked to the security console. "I'll pull Sexiv for the night. If there's a physical entry, we'll see it." The monitor flickered as footage loaded. The group leaned in. Maya constrained her breath and watched 48 hours of recorded minutes compress into a dozen scrubbed plays. The CCV came up short. Footage broke at two critical intervals: the elevator bay and the corridor that led to Maya's desk. Malik's face did not change, but his hands pressed on the keyboard harder. "Tampered." He said. "There are deliberate gaps." The word rearranged the room. Suspicion inverted. Someone had removed evidence to frame a narrative. Maya's chest unclenched enough for her voice to lift. "So someone wanted it to look like I leaked it." Her sentence was small, but it carried anger now. Emotion shifted from suspicion to a taut, urgent need to clear her name. Maya, who had keys, who could enter after hours. Jonah answered. "Two Quickly facilities contractors, on-call engineers. There are sign-ins." Ethan's fingers drummed once, and he said, "Bring the receipts. Bring the sign-in logs." Now Lena stood and moved to the console with him. The legal and security team became a working unit, focused and precise. They found a receipt. It had a timestamp from just after midnight and a coffee shop logo. Maya recognized the logo. It was the kiosk next to the underground parking. Jonah's hand hovered over the printed slip. "This was found near Maya's desk." "Malik, it proves someone was there." Jonah's eyes flicked to Maya and then to Ethan. The room pulled tighter. Ethan's reaction was a narrowing rather than a flare. He leaned forward, resting both hands on the table, and asked Jonah directly, "Where were you between 11:45 and 1:30? Jonah's mouth opened and closed. I had to check the deployment servers. I left the office after 10, but I came back. I didn't go near Maya's desk." That denial hit against the printed receipt on the table. The next external event arrived as a high-resolution image was projected. Ethan clicked to enlarge the viral photo. A tiny reflection in the glass panel of the tablet showed the cuff of a sleeve and a distinctive pair of linked geometric cufflinks. Ethan's eyes narrowed at the reflection specifically. "Jonah, whose cufflinks are those?" His finger tapped the reflected pattern until Jonah swallowed. Emotion shifted again from urgent defense to a sharp focus on details that could free her. Maya reached for the printout and traced the reflection with her finger, speaking through action more than words. "That cuff isn't mine. It matches Jonah's past sponsorship images. Check his public appearances." She offered the exact detail, the linked geometry and a faint engraving she remembered from a company photo. Lena keyed a search and pulled up a publicity shot. The match was visible. Jonah's throat worked. Confrontation came fast. Ethan stood and walked to the adjoining private office. He returned with an old invoice and a delivery receipt Jonah had tried to bury in his inbox. Ethan set the receipt on the desk and said, "Jonah, you signed in tonight at 1:02. Malik found your badge recorded at the stairwell camera." "Explain it." Jonah's face went red. He tried to speak over the accusation. Ethan cut him off. "Jonah, answer." The cadence of that command was a hard instrument in the room. Jonah's rapid back and forth began. I went to the server room. No, I wasn't at Maya's desk, Malik. You know I was doing a system check, Lena. I didn't take a picture, he pantomimed innocence, but his hands betrayed him with micro-gestures of agitation. That exchange met the requirement for confrontation, quick clipped lines flying between them. Jonah's voice dropped. I took a photo, but I didn't post it. I was asked to test leak vulnerability. I was told to stage a scenario for response time. Lena's pen paused. The word asked formed the hinge of a larger reveal. Ethan, by whom? Name them. Jonah looked down and produced a name that was not expected, an unnamed senior stakeholder. Someone high above operations and influence outside the immediate leadership. The room fractured into procedural responses. Malik for names. Lena demanded documentation. Ethan pressed. Who authorized this test? Show proof, or we will assume bad faith. Jonah produced a file on his phone, then deleted it, hands trembling. They mean not to leave traces. They wanted to see how quickly a leak would spread, to control the narrative before the launch. The admission shifted the blame away from Maya. But it also exposed a scheme meant to shape public perception. That was the peak of the chapter's tension, Jonah's sudden admission that he acted at direction. It changed the meaning of earlier events and created a new problem. Who at the top authorized this manipulation of evidence? Ethan barked orders. Contain this. Legal, precoordinate. No statement tonight. Lena, draft containment. The words started an organized effort to shield Maya from immediate fallout. Maya's emotional moves became concrete choices. I need access to the server logs. I need to see the photos. Metadata. Lena replied. We will subpoena them if necessary, Maya. For now, we contain comments and track the source. Malik added. We also found that someone disabled 2 cameras. Whoever did it had admin-level access. The team list became a set of tasks that rearranged priorities: protect the staff, investigate tampering, preserve evidence. During the legal war room, Maya paced while Ethan and Lena negotiated the public-facing strategy. They spoke in short, specific sentences. Ethan, no one pins this on an individual. We will call it an internal audit. We delay the press release. Lena replied. We will notify the board and set an internal review. Maya listened and then said, I want a security escort to my car. I don't want to leave alone tonight. The sentence was a request and an action. She needed physical supervision as much as reputational protection. The investigation revealed a larger scheme. Jonah whispered. They wanted to test our response to leaks tied to low-level staff. They thought it would pressure an adjustment in reporting lines. Lena's face tightened. Ethan, who benefits? Jonah did not answer fully. He only said, someone higher. Someone who handles stakeholder narratives. The admission expanded the case out into the company structure. Emotion moved from suspicion and fear into a guarded relief mixed with anger. Maya felt relief because evidence now indicated tampering. She felt anger because someone exploited her desk to manipulate a narrative. She folded those emotions into concrete actions. She gave Malik a list of items to secure at her desk. She annotated her notebook with page numbers to prove authorship. And she asked Lena for a written confirmation of the containment plan. Each step was operational, not rhetorical. An unexpected twist arrived when Malik came back from the stairwell with a glossy business card in his hand. This was tucked under a keyboard at the workstation across from Maya's. He said. Jonah's name was on the card. The card also bore the logo of a consulting firm tied to a senior stakeholder. The card connected a contractor to Jonah's activities. Maya read the name aloud and recognized the firm's lead from a board meeting earlier that month. That recognition created a new thread to pull. Ethan's protective inclination became visible. No one outside legal speaks to the media. Jonah, you will cooperate fully. Malik, full chain of custody on that card. He spoke in directives that built a shield around Maya. His manner softened in action. He requested her rest in a secure room and assigned a staffer to walk her to the parking garage. He did not say the invitation as kindness. He issued it as a controlling measure that, for the first time that night, felt protective. Maya accepted the escort. Her acceptance was not surrender but strategy. She stood and collected her notebook from the secured desk where Malik had placed it under a glass dome. Her fingers closed around the leather. The object had become evidence and a marker of identity. Ethan watched from the boardroom windowsill with the city lights catching his cufflinks. He did not look away when she left. They moved through the building in pairs. Jonah went ahead, flanked by Malik. Maya walked behind Ethan for a stretch, then alongside him as they reached the foyer. Ethan, thank you for. Her sentence failed into the practical. For not making me the story tonight. He stopped at the elevator and answered succinctly. We're protecting staff. That's my job. The tone of his reply was short. The meaning was longer. At the executive wing's security bay, it recovered some metadata fragments from the network logs. Lena reported the photo's timestamp was altered, but the upload path points to a contractor's remote IP tied to last month's board. Vendor Malik tapped his screen and said that vendor had access to the floor for testing the new evidence, traced the manipulation outward toward an orchestrated test rather than a lone leak. A mini cliffhanger split the middle of the chapter. Lena looked at Ethan and said, There's a new upload this morning, an edited video of the prototype that wasn't meant for release. The sentence stopped the conversation. Everyone leaned in. The idea of edited footage suggested a second wave of narrative control. For a moment, no one spoke. The air held specific, concrete danger. Then action resumed. Ethan issued orders to quarantine the site's feed and to trace the uploader. Jonah saw his cooperation. Malik called the investigator assigned to external vendors. Maya wrote a list of contacts who could verify her presence in evenings. Each external event received discovery, SexTV gap, reflection in the image, Jonah's confession, the vendor card. The edited video arrived every few paragraphs and pushed the plot forward. By dawn, the immediate danger had been contained. The legal team drafted a delayed, measured statement. Public relations prepared a narrative emphasizing an internal security audit. Ethan instructed that no one outside legal would speak. He also made a decision that changed the personal texture of the night. He overrode a faster public assignment that would have named a fall guy and instead ordered a coordinated internal review to avoid scapegoating Maya. That decision was a turning point. For Maya, it meant more than job security. It meant someone at the top chose to withhold a punitive headline in favor of process. She watched Ethan make the call. Lena, Ethan, that will cost leverage with the board. Politically, he replied, we will manage the board. We are not burning an employee to protect optics. The words were practical and moral in their consequences. As dawn washed the skyline, Maya packed her notebook from the secured desk while Ethan stood by the glass and watched. Her fingers methodically closed the cover and slid a band around it. She placed it in her satchel, with the spine facing outward so the torn corner still showed. The scene was quiet in action but loud in consequence. She was reclaiming an object that had been used against her. Ethan stepped closer as she zipped the satchel. Maya, the single name address was formal and immediate. She looked up. He handed her a discreet parking pass and a folded note from Lena confirming the containment plan. He plainly didn't leave the city without telling Lena. The directive sounded like control. Maya heard it as protection. Maya touched the parking pass between her fingers. "He won't," she said. She closed the elevator door with her back and felt the buildings hum as she descended. Ethan remained by the windows watching the sunrise hit the bay. He turned the cufflinks on his wrist once, a subtle habit she had seen before. She stepped out into the pale light, clutching the notebook and the evidence of a night that had nearly unmade her. Before she reached her car, Malik handed her a secure escort detail and a printed, signed statement from Lena that confirmed the company would not release names tonight. "This will help if it leaks again, Malik," he added. "Keep your notebook with you at all times." The instruction was practical and protective. Maya slid into the driver's seat and glanced up at the glass tower. She thought of Jonna's confession and of the vendor card tucked now into an evidence bag. She thought of Ethan's choice to shield her, not because he owed her, but because he had authority and used it to alter the immediate consequences for her life. That choice set a new course for them, professional protection that might become something else. The final concrete beat arrived as she checked her rearview mirror and saw a reflection of Ethan at the building entrance, silhouette against the dawning skyline. He raised a hand in a small, precise motion, no flourish, just a signal. Maya caught it. She placed the worn leather notebook onto her passenger seat and, before starting the engine, closed the door with deliberate care,